This is a CC Radio podcast.
It was just the most massive thing I've ever seen. To tell you the honest truth, I thought, well, we're the only ones left on this planet. Something's happened. We've missed something here.
The fear that went in me when I seen it was just, like the feeling, I'd say it was fear, but I've never felt that feeling before in my entire life.
It's a weird feeling, like you can't explain it when you don't know. You feel like you're being followed, but you don't know what it is.
We had two to our right, another one in front of us, another one to the left, and another one just across the road, shaking the daylight out of the tree. All we get was a big red eye.
I remember waking up and looking at the end of the bed, and there was a figure there, almost insect-like, and then I blacked out.
Welcome to the show, everyone. You are listening to Believe, Paranormal and UFO Radio. My name is Cade Moyer, and thanks for tuning in. If you've had an encounter, get in touch with me. My email address is believe@ccradio.com.au, or you can message me on Facebook at facebook.com/Believe UFO Radio. If you enjoy this episode, there are a few things you can do to help the show. Firstly, you can go to iTunes and leave us a 5-star rating and review, or you can share the show around social media with your friends and family, and that will help us grow. Tonight I'm joined by Donna, and Donna had an absolutely terrifying YOWIE encounter in the Australian Kimberley in the early 80s. Now, some of the listeners may recognize this story from our very, very special call-in shows that we do in the Believe fan group. So if you want to listen to those, we do those about once a month. So make sure you go onto Facebook and join that. But tonight I want to welcome Donna. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Kate. Nice to speak to you.
It's lovely to speak to you again. Your encounter absolutely blew me away when you gave me the short version, and it terrified me then. And I am absolutely ecstatic that you've come on the show to share the full encounter with us. Do you mind going back to the start of your encounter all the way back in the early 80s?
Yeah, okay. I was travelling northern Kimberley region. I'd rather not mention the town. Situation, I used to ride my bike early in the morning out of town, a couple of kilometres south of this particular town. I got sick of doing that particular route on a regular route, so I started to go north of town, and it was the main road, Highway 1. It was about 5 o'clock in the morning, and I finally found the main bitumen road because I was going to go on the old dirt track road, and someone gave me directions to the newer road. And the first time I just riding by at 5 o'clock in the morning, and about 2 kilometres out of town, they had this small quarry, and the dogs were just going crazy, and I just kind of ignored the dogs. And I heard this kind of a growl at one stage from a distance as I drove past. And I thought, I'll ride my push bike past and thought, oh, that must be a stray dog. That's why the dogs are going crazy. And when I heard that growl, kind of like, I felt really weird. Like I felt like a vibration just vibrate, but it was subtle, but I just felt really odd and just shrugged it off. So I kept riding my bike. Then I went back past that same position. I heard another growl, just ignored it, shrugged it off. Next day I did the same thing, and the same thing happens again. Come the third day, I go out that way, and dogs are going berserk. And this time the growls are a little bit closer, and the cockatoos are just going crazy, just ducking and diving. Like you could see where the birds were kind of going from tree to tree. It's like I never heard anything walk in the tall grasses, and we're about like a metre or about a metre above ground on the road looking down type of thing. It's like a high road. And I heard this growl, and I just kind of low gruffle growl, a bit close, and I just ignored it. I thought, gee, that dog's close. I thought maybe it's a dingo. And then I head back into town the fourth day, early morning. This one's a really cool morning. Mist just hanging around the grass, just slowly rising up with the sun. And the dogs are actually going berserk. And I've got people working the quarry, and you hear the people going crazy, telling the dogs to shut up. And this time I could hear this growl, and it was right next to me as I drove the push bike past. And I heard this automatic growl. I can't even describe the growl. It's like a gruffle growl and a roar. And I just thought, gee, that dog's going to get me. So I just pumped my legs, started riding my bike as hard as I could, and I heard this almighty thump. And like something just jumped off the ground up onto the road. And then I hear this thud right behind me. Riding the bike as hard as I can. By the third side, I could actually feel it behind me, and it was like it was trying to get behind the bike, but I think the back wheel was in its way. And next thing I heard this almighty growls, because as it was coming towards me, you could hear it growl once, twice, and each time its growl got bigger and guttural. I can't say that word, but it was like deep and throaty. And next thing I just heard this growl, and as I just looked over my shoulder, I could actually feel this. I heard the growl and feel this breath on the back of my neck, and as I kind of turned around, it just roared and growled so loud that I just shook off I was just shaking inside, like my internal organs was like quivering. And as it was thudding, the bike was kind of coming off the ground and hitting the ground. I was riding the bike and nearly lost my balance a few times. And I looked over my shoulder, and I just leant forward as this massive hand came down, and this forearm, and at the same time, the foot came in stride with its arm, and next thing I said, the other side of the foot, and it was like coming around the bike trying to grab me. It made about
goodness.
And when it was coming down, like it was thudding, it was, I can't explain. As it ran, you could see, because I was looking down at, it's funny, I'm looking down at the ground, and I saw this massive feet, and it's in stride with my pedal. So by the time I'm pushing my foot down to move forward faster, the foot in sync with my pedal, that's how close it was. And I could see the inside of its leg. It had massive feet. It could not, or seemed it couldn't, as it was running flat-footed, it seemed to have no flexibility in its ankle. It seemed rather rigid. And all the inside of its leg was almost bare skin, but it had auburn fur from on the top of its thighs and down the front, and its feet was kind of almost bare. The hands, I'll never forget the hands. When the arm came down to grab my shoulder and I leant forward, I saw this massive hand, and I can't explain it. The inside of its forearms were pretty thin. The fur on the outside of its forearm was all auburn, reddy brown colour, and it's very coarse, like a horse's hair, like a mane from a horse's hair, but it was short fur, like a short-haired dog, if that makes sense, but with the odd strands of long hair. And its hands were bare. It had massive long fingernails, but the fingernails were like chipped and split all the way down, and it had dirt all the way down in the cracks and in the nails that you could see it. And it was, as it was growling, I'm leaning forward, and I'm just pumping those legs as fast as I can. I knew I was in trouble, because every time it growled, I kind of almost lost my balance, and I felt really nauseous. I just couldn't focus. All I kept thinking to myself, keep moving forward, look straight ahead. And all I could feel its breath on my neck. I couldn't smell anything. That was the odd thing. I could not smell anything, but I could feel the breath, the warmth of the breath, but see the breath go past my eyes, because it was a really cold morning that morning, and the sun was coming down. The sun was rising up, but kind of coming at an angle, and you could just see the breath coming out of his, from his mouth from behind, if that makes sense, because I'm looking at the side over my shoulder. And how can I say, it's really, it's just like every time he ran, the bike quivered, and I nearly lost my balance. So I'm going as fast as I can. It just kept growling, and every time it growled, I felt like I was going to pass out and I was really nauseous. Put that way, so nauseous and sick. I wasn't sure it was because I was riding the bike as hard as I could, or because of his growling, because I kept missing a skip. My heart was missing a skip of a beat, and I just had like butterflies, but the butterflies are so nauseating that all my internal organs just quivering. I can't explain it. And this thing kept growling, and I thought, oh, this is going to get me, because by now it was almost running side by side to me. Like you could see one leg in front of the other, but its legs were kind of getting ahead of, how can I explain it? When you've got your pedals, your bike, as it was striding, its legs are kind of in front, almost in front, in pace of my front wheel of the push bike, that makes sense. So it's getting ahead of me, like it's almost running beside me, but it's kind of coming around, if that makes sense. So I could see it from the side, kind of coming closer, like you could sense it was trying to work its way around the push bike. I can't work out. I just kept looking ahead. Anyway, as I was riding the bike, some cars came around this massive kind of a blind bend, because it's got hills. And the first car came, and the sun was kind of coming down, so I could see her face in the car, and the look of shock on her face, because she must have seen what was happening, and she just sped